This is Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. It's powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. To get an extended 30-day trial, visit shopify.com/masters. Hey entrepreneurs, my name is Felix and I'm the host of the Shopify Masters podcast. Each week we put out podcast interviews with successful e-commerce entrepreneurs or experts to give you inspiration, motivation, and actionable tips to increase your traffic and sales so your store can generate the sales you need to live the life you want. In the last episode, Tanya Dalton from inkwellpress.com explains how she promotes lead magnets using Facebook to build a 7-figure business. On today's episode, you'll learn from an entrepreneur that uses style quizzes to convert customers and collect highly useful customer data. In today's episode, you'll learn how to start a rental business, how to create a quiz to convert customers, and how to find and work with high-quality interns. Today, I'm joined by Brittany Haas from happilyeverborrowed.com. Happily Ever Borrowed is a luxury e-commerce site that rents bridal accessories to brides and was started in 2011 and based out of New York City. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, excited to have you on. And I was just discussing with you very quickly before we got on about how this is the first guest I've had on that rents products. So I think it's going to be really interesting. So tell us a little bit more about your store and how it all works.
Sure. So Happily Ever Borrowed, as you mentioned, started in 2011. We rent bridal accessories to brides for their wedding day. So everything from veils to headpieces to tiaras, everything except the dress, basically. And how we operate is we buy directly from the wholesale designers, just like any other brick and mortar store would, except instead of selling the product to the brides, we rent the product to the brides. So we offer 4 or 8 day rentals, and we prepare the brides for their wedding day by, saving money and spending less on all of their bridal accoutrements.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm actually in the process right now of planning a wedding. My wedding's in November, so definitely understand thanks. You definitely understand the need to keep an eye on the cost. So I think you're definitely in a good place just from a potential customer talking to you. So how did you come up with this idea? How did you recognize that there was a need for something like this?
So I was in college, and I was actually a fashion design major and at Cornell University. And while I was there, my sisters started to get engaged. I'm the youngest of 4 girls, so lots of sisters, lots of weddings. And as I was kind of shopping around with them, realized kind of the low quality and high prices of bridal gowns, basically. And when I saw how expensive these gowns were, and upwards of my sister's ranges was $2,000, $3,000 on one gown that you're wearing for 5 to 6 hours of your life. After that, they would need a veil and the jewelry and the sash, and all of these extra pieces kind of add an additional $1,000 or more onto the total cost of their wedding day outfit. So I kind of put it in the back of my head of, this doesn't really make sense. And it was, when I graduated, it was right around the time of kind of the tech bubble in New York, and Rent the Runway and Birchbox and all these female entrepreneur, Harvard, HBC startups were happening. And, I just started thinking about the process and decided to start online with accessories. And here we are today, 5 years later.
Yeah. So did you always have the intention of renting, or did you start off selling products, or what was it from the beginning you knew that you wanted to do rentals?
We definitely started with the idea of rentals. My career otherwise has been in the luxury fashion industry, and I can understand the concept of buying something like a purse or shoes that are really expensive, and you can kind of get your cost per wear down because you feel like it's this piece that you're buying that you're going to wear for your life. But when bridal came around, it was really shocking to me that women were spending so much money on something that really they could only wear for a couple hours of their life. So rental was definitely always the concept. However, we did start with an idea of doing bridal gowns in a brick and mortar store and renting that way. So I actually started the business with one of my very good friends in college. Her name was Haley Page. She's actually a big bridal designer these days. But she and I kind of conceptualized together because we were designing in college together and thought we could do rental gowns because, we knew how to design the dresses and we knew how to fit the dresses and, change the patterns and pick out the things that would make it easy to rent and to size. And then when we thought about the startup costs, and like I said, it was right around the time when this tech bubble was starting, we thought e-commerce was the way to go. And we decided to go with the non-sizable option of, veils and accessories instead.
Makes sense. So, the last thing you want whenever you start a business is to have, a ton of inventory and then try to hustle to offload it, or in your case, start renting them out. So how did you get started? Did you have a large inventory, a large catalog at first, or, give us the idea, tell us a little bit more about, the beginning stages of creating, a catalog for people to rent from?
Yeah, well, the original idea, started, and we really had to talk to the bridal designers themselves and get an idea of if it was something they were really even interested in. So we sent a lot of, cold emails to designers that we didn't know and just asked them to discuss the concept. And shockingly, so many designers were willing to talk to us, like Reem Acra and Angel Sanchez and all these great bridal designers. And we just kind of went in there and started talking about different ideas that we had. And, everyone was kind of on board with the idea that bridal was kind of antiquated and needed to change. So, I think we started more in a way that was more traditional in the sense that we were purchasing inventory upfront, stocking it in our apartments, and really kind of picking what we thought that brides would love and like. And over time, I've kind of shifted my buying style into really kind of testing the market before we really purchase the product. So most of our brides are not renting their product, days before their wedding. Most of the time, it's about 2 to 3 months out. So we'll put a lot of images up on the site of product that we're not physically owning. And then once we receive a rental on it, we'll purchase the product from the designer. So we're saving ourselves a bit that way and not actually purchasing the inventory up front.
Yeah, that's great that your business almost has a built-in lag time in it where you don't have to purchase the inventory right off the bat because these people that are customers that are buying or renting from you don't expect the products until 2 to 3 months after they've put in their purchase.
Exactly.
That's cool. So when you started to build out this catalog, you said that you weren't testing it out initially at first. So what was your process behind that? Were you just kind of buying whatever you thought that the market wanted, going off of your own intuition, or what was the process for that?
Yeah, I think bridal is great in the sense that it's not quite like the fashion industry where things change every 6 months. Bridal trends, they change over time, but if obviously, Felix, maybe this isn't your forte, but if you think about, the past 10 years of bridal style, like strapless dresses were in for the longest time until Princess Kate got married, and then all of a sudden sleeves were back in. But it took like 10 years for the style to really change. So we're lucky in the sense that things evolve a little bit more slowly in the bridal industry versus the fashion industry. So, we try to keep ahead of trends, and something that we've done recently now is we implemented a style quiz that we created, and we just made a type form basically and, had brides kind of pick pictures, different images of things that they liked or didn't like to evaluate what their bridal style was, whether it was more classic or boho or beachy or glamorous. And based on the responses that we got is helping us really figure out what trends are really happening with brides. And then this way we can kind of focus the pieces that we're purchasing better, or even the images that we're putting on the site better. And we've even categorized it on the site so that based on the response that you get on the quiz, you can kind of shop by your style. Mm-hmm. So we're really kind of trying to be smarter about how we're buying and really basically kind of polling our customers before we're even purchasing the product.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about your style quiz in a bit. I think it's a very, when you told me about it, I think it's a very smart way to not just get data from your customers, but also help them out at the same time. We'll dive into that in a second. So I want to talk about getting your first customers though. So once you had this inventory built out, what was the marketing plan early on? Like how were you able to start actually getting some revenue, some sales through the door?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, bridal is a little bit behind the times when it comes to technology, and it's sped up a little bit over time. But 5 years ago, even, it was basically, when you got engaged, the first thing you did was you ran to, the newsstand and bought every bridal magazine you could, because that's the first time that you're actually allowed to not feel shamed for buying bridal magazines without being engaged. And it's shocking, but I mean, a page in a bridal magazine is, 10 grand, couple dozen grand to get in there. So, we had to be a little bit more creative on how we got the word out. So we did a lot of, just pushing to every bridal editor we could find. We did a lot of research and just kind of pushed the concept out there. And we were really lucky because a lot of those designers that we had talked to early on were really helpful in connecting us with editors of bridal magazines and bridal blogs. And, even as soon as 5 years ago, there weren't as many bridal blogs as there are now. So because we were basically e-commerce, we really tried to push on blogs and editorial and really get the word out that way. Back then, it's actually even before Instagram or Pinterest even existed. So it was really early on, kind of in the tech space to get the word out. So it was pretty grassroots.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So was this something that you were working on at that time too? Was it part-time or did you dive in full-time focusing on this? Like how did this fit into your lifestyle at that time?
Yeah, it was part-time. I at the time was a fashion buyer at Saks Fifth Avenue, and honestly was really kind of excited by all of the tech industry that was happening in New York. And I spent a lot of my time going to meetups, just basically to talk to people, to see what they were doing, to get ideas, to learn how to online market, because, I was a little bit better versed in the financials and the buying process, but wasn't as creative when it came to marketing. So I really kind of just had to get out there and learn from other people how to really do this. And at that time, right before we launched, my friend Haley, who I mentioned, who I'd started the business with, got offered to get her own line, which is what she has now. And because that was going to be full-time for her and she was already in the bridal industry, it was a bit of a conflict of interest. So, basically the month before we launched the site, she stepped out. So it became just me part-time. And actually still I'm moonlighting. This is Happily Ever Borrowed is done on nights and weekends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of listeners out there can certainly relate to moonlighting their business. When you started early on, you said that you went to these meetups to learn a little bit more about online marketing and just, I guess, the tech scene in general. What was how did you work these networking events? Because I think this is also another sometimes underutilized aspect, just going offline and meeting people in person. Tell us a little bit more about your experience and what you got out of meeting people in person at these tech meetups.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially being kind of on the outside, I didn't really know what to expect. And I knew that I needed help and insight from other people to really get this started. And, I think for anyone who knows what it's like to start a business kind of on the side, it's exhausting to work a full day, try to work on your startup at the same time. And then at 6 p.m. be ready to go out and kind of put yourself out there and talk to people and just get ideas. And, I forced myself to go to at least, 3 to 4 meetups per week. And really just kind of learn and talk to people, because I honestly had no idea what it meant to start an e-commerce site, or, from everything from coding. And, Shopify was really great in that I didn't need to know too much code, but, even 5 years ago, Shopify, there was a lot that you had to figure out on your own. Mm-hmm. And I really I can't express how invaluable it was to just talk to people, because every night you met at least one person who gave you a tidbit of something that you didn't know before. And even if it was something that you maybe wouldn't use, it was at least something that you knew you didn't have to do going forward. So I think it's like a really great way to talk to people, to learn from them, especially when you're not as well versed in the industry.
Yeah, when you do go out and you're trying to, especially someone in your situation, like you're saying you were on the outside, and there's just, I'm sure you felt this too at the time, there's just so much to learn, so many things that you don't even know you don't know. Well, did you have a certain approach to trying to learn this whole new industry that you're, I guess at that time you were relatively clueless in? Like, how did you approach figuring out what you had to actually learn?
I think there was different stages that I went through to figure out what I needed to really know. So, for instance, at the beginning, when we still thought we were going to do a brick and mortar store with bridal gowns, we knew we would have to raise capital. So I went to a lot of meetups or even classes at General Assembly. I think they had just opened at the time, on how to raise capital, how to talk to angel investors, how to really navigate that whole part of the industry, which again is something that obviously I knew nothing about. And I think, after I kind of got through that, then it became the phase of building the website, the different resources you could use for that, and then transitioned into online marketing and how to read Google Analytics and how to do Facebook ads. And I think I tried to kind of immerse myself in different meetups and different experiences as far as learning as I kind of went through the process.
I think that's really important that you figured out what you need to know at that particular stage, because sometimes when you don't know what you're getting involved in, you kind of just spend so much time consuming information, trying to learn everything, but a lot of the stuff you learn is not going to be applicable right away. And I think that does a couple of things that hurts you in a couple of ways. One, it's potentially a waste of time, and two, it can kind of just get you, it just looks more daunting when you have so much ahead of you. And I like the approach that you've taken, where you figured out, okay, I'm in the fundraising stage, so let me go take some classes, let me network with people that can teach me more about this. And then when you went to more of the site development phase, you focus more on learning more on technical aspects. I think that's really important for a lot of, especially if you don't have a lot of time or a lot of energy and you are moonlighting, it's really important that you spend your time wisely and figure out what you actually need to learn and what you can maybe hold off on learning for a bit. So, speaking of moonlighting, so you've been moonlighting since the business started in 2011 for 5 years now. How do you, and I think this is a long time to be not a long time, but I think it could be a long time to be balancing multiple jobs essentially. How do you, balance your time or balance your energy to make sure that you don't burn out, especially now that you're 5 years into it?
I mean, I definitely should be getting more sleep than I do. 5 years, as you said, it's a long time to keep doing both. I think, over time, there has been so many moments in my life where I've really wanted to either sell the company or find another co-founder or someone to help pitch it more. And it's not going to lie, it's been rough. But I think, it's really helpful being the nature of my business, and that, we have a busy season. So there's engagement season, which is November through February, basically like Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day, which are kind of those big holiday moments where people often get engaged. And then there's bridal season, which is like April through September, where people are actually getting married. So I think over time, I've grown to kind of know those different seasons and know when I'm going to have to exert myself a little more versus when I have a little more time. And thankfully, it's kind of balanced out with my life in the fashion industry, in the sense that, in the summer, in the fashion industry, especially I work for a French brand, they're very slow. So I have a lot more time to work on Happily Ever Borrowed, and I have a lot of weddings in the summer. Whereas during Fashion Week, now that we're in the fall and towards winter, it's more about marketing and not so much about orders. And I have, less time because I'm working at my full-time job a little bit more, but I'm not worried about getting packages out on time. So I think that it's just been really lucky for me to kind of have this natural flow between the two. I don't think it's that easy for everyone.
Yeah, I think if you do get to the stage where you are thinking about selling the business or trying to find a co-founder, those are kind of precarious times because then you start thinking, once that thought enters your brain, you start thinking, man, my life could be different, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, if sell the company or find someone else to help you run it. So when you're going through these periods of time where you are, kind of a little more checked out from the business, kind of a little more checked out from entrepreneurship, what did you do to bring yourself back in?
Well, I think the order is bringing back in, which is I'm lucky with that. I think technology changes so quickly, and I think it's always exciting when you own your own business because there's all these other things you want to try. So, as Pinterest started getting ads and as Instagram started getting ads, and when I realized Typeform for the style quiz, there was all these different things that happened that kind of engage me back into the business and get me excited about how I can push forward. And, even as, I see the bridal industry evolving and people maybe not wanting to spend as much money on their wedding or as I see brides become more resourceful, I think that is what inspires me to really push forward with my business.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. When customers are knocking on your door, it's a lot harder to just kind of run and hide. So do people know that you can rent these kind of products, like the products that the veils, the jewelry, the headpieces that you're putting out for rentals? Is this a known, I guess, option for people that are for your customers essentially, or how do you educate the market on this potential option?
Well, I think it's been great to kind of watch it evolve over time. I think in the beginning, I heard from so many people constantly, oh my God, I wish I knew about you when I was getting married. I totally would have rented. And now 5 years later, I can say I don't hear that as much, which is, good and bad, because I think we've gotten the word out enough that it's a possibility. And to be honest, we don't have many competitors, if any. So I think brides are finding us now because we have a lot more designers and some great exclusive partnerships. So if a bride feels like she either can't afford the dream accessory she wants or she just doesn't value that one-time wear item, a lot of the time they're kind of just Googling the name of the piece that they want and we'll pop up and they find out about us that way. But we've also had a lot of great press and, we find now that we naturally have become one of these things on the list of, 50 ways to save on your wedding. And people say, rent your accessories or, check out pre-owned options. And we've been kind of lucky to be a staple, I would say, in the business now.
Yeah, I think when you do have this kind of unique business model, it does make it a lot easier to pitch to the press, to these editors that you were approaching earlier on. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach? Like, what was successful for you to get them to pay attention and eventually cover your business?
Yeah, it's interesting because bridal is tricky because you need to continually market yourself because even if brides know about you, there's only so much of a lifespan. Hopefully they're not getting remarried within a year or two. Yeah. So, we don't have a lot of repeat customers. So it's difficult because you have to continually put yourself out there and continually kind of pay for that space to be in their face and know that you exist. And even for editors, it's pretty tough because, it probably feels very repetitive to them to give the same tips over and over again. But as a reminder, you have a whole new crop of people getting engaged every single year. So I think it's actually been a little bit easier for us in that sense, because I think for traditional advertising or traditional editorial, you feel like once you've been in a specific magazine, they're probably not going to feature you for a long time. Whereas in bridal, they have new subscribers every 3 months, and they don't have to feel like it's an old story. It kind of becomes new again all of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned in some of the pre-interview questions was about validating new products. And you mentioned that many of the products on the site you first test with images, and then how does it work after that? Like how do these images that you post on the site prior to having it available in your inventory, how do they help you determine if it's worth investing in the particular piece or particular line?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll post a lot of pictures from the designers that we work with on the site of things that we're not, keeping in our inventory, because as we mentioned, most of the time, the lead time that we have is about 2 or 3 months before we actually have to fulfill the order. So we're really lucky in the fact that we get to kind of put these images up on the site and see, not only how many orders we're getting on the piece, but also we can see how much traction we're getting. And Shopify has been really helpful because they've implemented a lot of tools just on the dashboard that show you how often people are looking at the product or how that product is trending in comparison to other pieces. So we'll take a lot of care in looking at that and seeing how often people are clicking through or really looking at the product on deciding whether we buy it or not up front.
Yeah, I guess essentially what you're doing is pre-orders, right? You're getting people to pay up front and then delivering at a later time. So even if a listener out there doesn't have an industry or doesn't have a business that allows them to take the money and then the customer not expect anything for 2 to 3 months, you can still kind of replicate this by taking on pre-orders to determine if it's actually something worth you investing your money in the inventory. So you also mentioned earlier on about the style quiz, and I think this is a really interesting approach that you've taken. So tell us a little more about the style quiz. Like, what does it look like, and how does it work for an actual customer of yours?
Yeah, so we started with just a type form. I was really impressed kind of with the UX and the UI that Typeform was using, and that it was so clean and so simple and so easy. And basically our customer comes in. We actually, the way that we've been doing it, we can go and elaborate a little bit more later, but we've had a Pinterest ad to encourage brides to find their bridal style through the style quiz. And people will click through, and we have a series of pictures and different questions that say, based on what you want for your wedding or what you think your bridal style is, click on the picture that best reflects that. And it could be flowers, it could be gowns, it could be the groom style, it could be the cake, and a whole bunch of different things that lead them through different pictures and different thoughts to what they want to feel on their wedding day. And based on those series of questions and answers, it will pop up with your bridal style. And once you get to the end, you kind of click through and it will bring you straight to the collection on the page where you can see all of the different accessories that would fit within your bridal style, and kind of allows them to shop right there. And as they finish the quiz, they get emailed a specific free shipping code for their order. So, it's great data for us because not only are we collecting emails, but we're also finding out what bridal styles are the most popular, and that helps us with our buying process and, which pieces we should buy going forward.
Yeah, I really love this funnel, this Pinterest ad to this quiz, and then there's pictures and questions, and then after they answer them, you give them something of value for free, and then lead them to a place where they can purchase. And I'm not sure if you read this book, but there's a book called Ask by Ryan Levesque, I think, and we'll put that in the show notes. But he built in many businesses on this model of first getting a questionnaire in front of potential customers, and then based on their answers, giving them something of value, giving them some direction on which products they should purchase from you. And because, I think one of the best ways to build an e-commerce business, a store, is to replicate the offline experience as much as possible. And by having this quiz, you're essentially almost being there in person, like a rep at a store, asking the customer a bunch of questions and then directing them to the product that makes the most sense. So I think this is a very valuable funnel, a very valuable approach that pretty much any business can replicate. So is this, you use Typeform for this, so you can actually set up some kind of logic to determine what to show them based on their answers?
Yes. It took a little bit of kind of manipulating. The longer the quiz gets, the more difficult it becomes. But actually, Typeform was really great. They have a post right on their FAQs about kind of how to do that. So, you have to kind of figure out the output and what the output means into what kind kind of what they call the exit page it brings you to, but it was pretty simple to set up.
So once the customer takes a quiz and they see the results from the quiz, are they directed to a customized landing page of products, or like what do they see after they exit the quiz?
Exactly. So we have it collections on our Shopify site that kind of shows you what type of bride you are, and once they finish the quiz, it directs them directly to that collection page so they can see types of accessories that would fit their bridal style.
When you started off on this, and I really want to stay on this topic, when you started doing this, and for anyone out there that's thinking about starting for the first time, how many, results do you need? Like, do you need 20 different potential results, or like can you start something smaller? Like, what was your approach?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. I mean, I think, of course, you could come up with many nuances of different bridal styles, but I think we have about 6 answers. So I think, even the type form FAQ, I think theirs was maybe 3 or 4 answers that it gets you to, and we expanded it to about 6 or 7. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you need so many different options. I think if anything, it becomes a little clearer and easier the smaller it is.
Mm-hmm. And is this like the highest converting, sales channel for you to drive people from this quiz to a collections page?
Well, I think Pinterest in general has been the biggest sales channel for us. The style quiz has been really great for us to, as I mentioned, collect emails. And once we do that, we have some great email marketing as well. But we were really shocked to see how amazing Pinterest ads were for us. And something I actually learned from this podcast earlier, I can't remember which episode it was with you, but someone was mentioning ads and how you should really educate the customer and kind of walk them through. They were mentioning like different ways to really talk to your customer, and one of them was education. So one of our Pinterest ads is just how much you could save by renting instead of buying. And we have just an infographic of, if you rent your veil instead of purchase it, you could spend $500 by buying it, or you could spend $100 by renting it. And with that extra $400, you could upgrade to first class for your honeymoon, or invite 4 extra guests, or, get an extra tier on your cake. And we kind of did the budget for them of what $400 really means in the terms of your wedding. And that's another ad that has just done really, really well for us, because I think, Pinterest in general is so great for us. Mm-hmm. It's in general for brides, and maybe not even brides, but future brides. There's lots of women out there who are collecting lots of data and information for their wedding or future wedding. So even if they're not getting married within the next year, or even if they're not engaged, now they have this visual reminder on their Pinterest board to come find us when they are engaged. So I think it's a really great way and a really great marketing tool for us and the wedding industry in general.
Yeah, definitely an amazing sales channel. My fiance was actually just showing me a Pinterest board today, so I think that's a great market for you guys, a great place for you to put your message out there. So I want to talk a little bit about this Pinterest strategy that you have. So it sounded like you had an ad that you run for the quiz, but then also the pinning strategy that you have is to educate them through infographics. Is that the two-prong approach to Pinterest for you guys?
Yeah, we've tried a lot of different things. What we found is that education one and the style quiz have been the most successful for us. We tried one that was a little more generic and just kind of said, Happily Ever Borrowed is the place where you can rent accessories for 90% off the retail price with a pretty picture. And, it did well, but really what we found is the style quiz is amazing because people want to find their bridal style. And I think people go on Pinterest a lot to kind of find out their style in general. So it's a very natural occurrence. And then, as I mentioned, the education is something that people are always looking for ways, especially on Pinterest, to save money on their wedding. So it was a very successful pin for us. And, I actually took a look before I came on the podcast, and we were so impressed because we did try Instagram ads as well versus Pinterest ads. And the CPC for our Pinterest ads is 21 cents, and the CPC for the Instagram ads was $1. Wow. So it's such a huge difference. And the reach we were getting with Instagram was 16,000, and the reach we were getting with Pinterest was 46,000. So not only are we reaching more people and getting more clicks and more saves, but we're getting more for our money. So we really kind of immediately nixed the Instagram ads and realized that Pinterest was the way to go for us.
Yeah, I think in general, I'm not too surprised about your results from the different types of Pinterest ads you ran, because the less you make an ad look like an ad, I think the more effective it's going to be. And even though it's a quiz, it's still a very much an educational angle, right? You're trying to educate, you're trying to give some free value back to the customer, and that's always the very kind of best way to first bring them down your funnel. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the content that you create. How did you know what you should be educating your customers on? Like, how did you know that the particular topics that you cover were the topics that they wanted to learn the most about?
Well, I think to the point that you brought up earlier, do people know that they can even rent their bridal accessories? I think that was the angle we really needed to start with. And from there, also just explaining how much money they could actually save. I think a lot of people, and Felix, you know this as you're planning your wedding, they don't really think about the budget. They don't really think about how much it costs until they're in it, and then they realize how much it really is a financial burden. And I think that's when people frantically start Pinteresting on how to save money. So I think we really like to think of it in the big picture, right? It's not about renting your bridal accessory. It's not about, only having it for the weekend or even being environmental. It's about, in the bigger scheme of things, it's about saving money, but not really saving money. It's about spending your money more wisely. So like I mentioned about, you could buy this veil and own it, or you could rent it and invite 2 to 3 more guests at your wedding. And like, what does that actually mean to you? There's all these different ways that you could spend those dollars better. And it just doesn't make sense to own this piece that you will never wear again. So we really wanted to get that across. And I think the infographic was the best way to do it. Mm-hmm.
Do you create multiple infographics, or was this just the one that you had that demonstrated the potential, I guess, ways they can spend their money?
We've created a couple, but we found one that we just really loved and saw the best success with, and we've kept up with that.
And was this designed in-house, or the infographic that is, was it designed in-house, or did you outsource it?
In-house.
Okay, cool. Was there I think this is a great kind of piece of content for other entrepreneurs out there that might be interested in doing something like this. Any tips or any software tools that you use particularly or specifically to create the infographics?
I guess I was lucky in the sense that I went to school for design, so I had a little bit of background. But I use Photoshop for everything. So I guess like I mentioned, I'm a little lucky because I have some knowledge in that. But Photoshop for us is just the best way. And one thing I did do was do a little research and due diligence into Pinterest ads and what the best ratio was. So I guess it changes all the time, but I guess longer and thinner is the better way to go. So I just kind of Googled the best ratio and then made sure to fit our ad within that spectrum.
Makes sense. So when it comes to running these ads, like, for anyone out there that is thinking about running on Pinterest but has never gotten started, what kind of targeting is available? And how did you determine, you don't get into specifics about it, but how do you determine how to target ads on Pinterest?
There's a lot of different ways that they have it on there. You can now specifically look by audience. So you can even kind of import your list of customers and either exclude or include them and find like people. We are able to be a little bit more generic, and when I think people naturally think of Pinterest and think of weddings. So we've been able to be really specific and not just say, targeting people who are looking for weddings, but looking for wedding accessories or wedding veils or budget brides, and we've been able to really target by keyword and find the best ways to reach those people.
Makes sense. So when it comes to running a business like this, that's a rental business, there are obviously going to be more challenges that are different than someone that's just selling a product and kind of done with it in terms of the seller angle. But these products are being used over and over again. How do you, I guess, protect yourself, or how do you ensure that your inventory is not getting damaged or worn down faster than you'd like?
This is definitely something we've had to learn and deal with over time. I think, the biggest hurdle for us has always been shipping. It's obviously a very time sensitive business, and not only USPS but UPS or FedEx can always drop the ball, and packages get lost, and it does happen, and it's a bit of a tragedy every time it does. I have to say our brides have always been very careful with their product. I think maybe only once or twice in the 5 years we've been up and running have we had a bride that really ruined something. And most of the time they are super honest. I think every time they've been super honest and have emailed us and said, we had one girl who had dyed her hair the day before the wedding, and she's like, the veil is black now. Or I had a girl even last week who said, we had a mud accident with the veil. If it doesn't come out, please let me know and I will pay for the cleaning or for the veil. So our brides are very, very honest. The only time I would say we've had real issues is when we lend our products out for styled shoots. So this is something that maybe is a little more specific to the wedding or retail industry, but a lot of the time photographers will do these styled shoots where they'll ask a whole bunch of different vendors to collaborate. And, they'll kind of do a mock wedding, if you will. And then they send those images to different blogs or magazines for editorial. So we participate a lot in those because it's, free advertising for us. And that's where I think sometimes we run into people who aren't as careful with the pieces or aren't treating them with the respect that they need to be treated with. So we do run into that sometimes, but I think for the most part, jewelry, headpieces, these are, sterling silver pieces that are pretty sturdy. I think it's the veils that are a little more sensitive, and we kind of build that into our P&L when we're thinking about how often we need to replenish those pieces versus these pieces like jewelry or headpieces that can last a little bit longer.
Makes sense. So you mentioned, I think, in the pre-interview as well that you buy directly from the designers at wholesale prices. And typically when any e-commerce business out there, any business out there is buying wholesale, there are minimum order quantities that need to be met. Do you run into these issues when it comes to your lines? Like, are you buying large of quantities that you're able to get wholesale margins or wholesale pricing, or how do you work out these rates?
I think we've been really lucky in the sense that when we started 5 years ago, we created these relationships with the vendors, and a lot of them did have initial orders or order minimums that we needed to meet. And I think naturally over time we've created this relationship with each of our vendors where they know kind of the nature of our business, and they're not looking for us to really push for these minimum orders each month. I think they're getting that from their brick and mortar retailers. So for us, and what we've explained to them and how we've set ourselves up in the market is that we are reaching those brides that they otherwise wouldn't be able to reach because those brides can't afford their product anyway. So for them, it's more, profitable to sell to us at wholesale. They're making the same margin they are on us as they are from someone else who's selling at full price because they're just selling it at wholesale. And, they're getting more exposure because if the bride isn't able to purchase it because it's too expensive, she's not probably going to take out an extra loan to purchase that piece. She's just going to get something cheaper. So for them, they're excited because more people get to wear their product and more people know about it.
And did you have to convince them of this, or I guess pitch that angle to them? Because it makes sense when you talk about, but I do wonder if there's kind of some old school business logic where they don't want to even entertain the idea of renting out their products because someone might, and it might eat into their margins, even though your explanation makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they're definitely even more so in the beginning. There was a lot of convincing, and we had a lot of vendors who wanted to start with just exclusive product only, things that would only be online that they couldn't get in the stores, as to not compete with the brick and mortar, which for us, we found great. We love exclusives, so we were fine with that. Or certain vendors would say, okay, we'll sell you product, but only stuff that's discontinued so that it doesn't compete with the brick and mortar. And I think most of the time, 9 times out of 10, the vendors we're working with realize over time that it's not competing with those brides who just want to purchase the piece. I'm in that stage of my life where everyone's getting married, all of my friends. And, I even have best friends who haven't rented from me. And it drives me nuts because I'm like, how could you not borrow? Like I have a whole entire place where you can borrow. And they say, well, I was in the store and I bought the dress and they put the veil on and I just wanted it. And I wanted that specific piece in that moment and I had to have it. So, there's always that feeling, and that purchase is never going to go away. We're really just exposing their product to the people who don't want to spend that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So when you purchase these products at wholesale prices, how often do you have to rent the products out before you are breaking even?
2 times.
Okay, so yeah, pretty quickly then. So do you ever get in a situation where, I guess most of your products are going to be profitable pretty quickly? Have there been, after 5 years now, have there been products that you have in your inventory that just stop getting, I guess, as many rentals? And then what do you do in those cases?
Definitely. I think, at the beginning, as I mentioned, we had to purchase a lot more product up front. So at the beginning, there was definitely less profitability on pieces because as much as I might love something, it might not resonate with brides, or it might have not photographed well and people might have not felt the same way about it. So now that we've kind of shifted to more of these image-focused purchasing patterns where we're usually getting a rental straight off the bat before even purchasing the product, there's definitely been times when things have slowed down or over time we've had unprofitable product. We've tried a couple of different things. We've done sample sales on the site, which haven't really worked that well for us. But I think now what we love doing the most is we found a charity locally in New York City that will take our products from us, and it's a tax write-off for us, but it's also a really great way for us to help brides who are in need. So that's kind of where our unprofitable pieces as well as our gently used pieces go after they've kind of been through the whole rental cycle.
Makes sense. So you mentioned earlier that you were pretty much running this business solo, but I think in the pre-interview questions you mentioned that you have had social media interns in the past. So tell us a little bit about this. Like, what was first of all, like what were they responsible for doing, these interns, and how do you begin working or finding interns to help you with your business?
Yeah, I think over time I knew that social media was one of the most important ways to get the word out. And we felt like we needed a presence on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and now Snapchat, but I'm still not wrapping my head around that one, especially now that Instagram has stories. But we just kind of went out there. I think there was a lot of, there's internship.com and there's lots of different ways that you can find interns. And I always worked remotely with them. I found especially with social media, it's so easy to schedule out and, create content calendars and really encourage them to work together on a shared document to say, for instance, I don't know if you know, but today is National Guacamole Day. So there's all these, yeah, we had some at the office today, but there are some like funny, silly holidays like that, or, more regular content like Tuesday Shoes Day on Instagram, where we have lots of these different little things that we can put on a calendar and the intern can kind of work on to create the content and schedule it out on all of our different platforms so that we're on the same page about what is going out there into the world.
Yeah, I think when you are working with interns or just hiring in general, you also have to kind of position yourself to be attractive for these interns. You can't just say, hey, I have an internship, or hey, I have this new job, and then expect the kind of best quality candidates to apply. Any tips on how to make your internship more attractive to, high quality applicants?
Well, I think it goes both ways, right? Like you want to help people learn and you want them to have a good experience. But at the same time, it's always easier to have someone start up right away and know a little bit about what you need them to do. So I always did a lot of sample testing before they became our interns. So I would ask them to kind of do a sample post or a sample Instagram, or I would ask them to send me their personal social media channels so that I can kind of check out what their voice is. And I think, I'm always willing to help and coach them through. I think most of the people that we've had as interns, while they're doing social media, probably had some interest in the fashion industry in general, which I have a bit of a background in. So I think, kind of offering that personal mentorship and really kind of asking them what they want to do with their career and where they want to go and how I can help is the way that you really make yourself attractive to finding good interns and wanting them to really work hard for you.
Makes sense. Can you give us an idea of how successful the business is today?
Sure. So over the past 5 years, we've helped over 500 brides rent their accessories. And we're having a really great year this year. We're on track to do about $20K in revenue.
Very cool. So what are the future plans for the business? What do you have planned for the next, let's say, year of business?
Well, I think we've been testing all of these different ad venues, and we're really excited to see the return on our investment on those. I think we're really excited about the inventory situation that we're in and the fact that we're able to really collect all this data information to make better purchasing decisions. And, we're just continuing to get the word out and to really let brides know that rental is a possibility.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Brittany. So happilyeverborrowed.com again is a website. Anywhere else you recommend that folks check out if they want to follow along with what you're up to or see what's available for rentals?
Sure. You can check us out on Instagram. We're at happilyeborrowed. And you can search for us on Pinterest at happilyeverborrowed. And I think those are the best channels to find us at.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brittany.
Thank you, Felix.
Thanks for listening to Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. To start your store today, visit shopify.com/masters to claim your extended 30-day free trial.